Hello and welcome to your tour of Lassen Volcanic National Park with me, Professor Davis. I'm so happy to take you through a little tour of my journey from this sabbatical year. This was the view driving in on Interstate 5 from the north, so from Oregon into Northern California. I thought that the Mount Shasta is here on the skyline. It is the biggest mountain that you see in this. Mount Shasta is absolutely beautiful, and I had to stop and pull over just to get a better picture. I didn't have time to go to Mount Shasta this time, but next time, absolutely. Lassen Volcanic National Park is situated between 7 national forests, including Lassen National Forest, which we'll see here in a few minutes. As physiographic provinces, it's at the very southern tip of the Cascade Range. And here is Lassen Volcanic National Park, and spy to the west, though, that pattern on the landscape. Do you see the checkerboard? Hey y'all, today on the tour we're in Lassen Volcanic Forest, not the actual park yet, but this is called Subway Cave. We're going inside. Often these lava caves, you go up and then down in. All of this volcanic products. This is the Lassen National Forest, so I'm not in the bounds of Lassen Volcanic Park yet, but almost there. Pardon me. The type of rock that you see here is part of what they call the Hat Creek lava flow, which is a pahoehoe type of lava flow. Pahoehoe, pahoehoe. So to get into a cave in Lassen Volcanic Park, you need to make sure you apply for a permit. So I went and I got my permit the same day. So if you're looking to get into the caves, you can get in the same day, just get there early to the actual park. So I got my permit and I wanted to go into the cave. And you'll see at the end of this clip that I actually was feeling very uneasy. It's a third of a mile long, which is not very long at all, but it's absolutely dark and you need a headlamp, which I was equipped with. But I was feeling really nervous going down into like the depths. The other thing that made it challenging was that the actual floor of this lava flow, this lava tube, is not one bit. So you've got to be really sure-footed in the complete dark with a headlamp as you climb through these caves. It was indeed this moment that I had started to have a panic attack. The good news is that I listened to my gut, I turned around, and I went back out of the cave. So, yeah. What I'm saying here is that what I noticed between all the national parks that I went to is that traffic is really terrible, particularly in places like Yellowstone and Zion. Lassen did not have that at all. I don't think a lot of people visit Lassen. This is one of the trails in the National Forest. It's the Spatter Cone Trail, and it's wonderful because they give you a self-guided tour, so you don't have to like hook up with a ranger or anything. So if you're by yourself and there's not a lot of people around, you can have a self-guided tour. A spatter cone is a low-lying, steeply sloped mound or hill composed of like welded lava fragments, known as spatter, and they form around a central vent from which that lava fountain emerges. Usually they're modest, they're not huge, but they're more circular, cone-shaped, and at the end of this walk, I get to the top of this cone. Spatter cones are characteristically formed by lava fountaining. highly fluid mafic lavas, like those in the Hawaiian Islands that are basalt based. What's interesting is that in these worlds of lava, where lava has shaped the landscape, they create a lot of hollow areas. When you think about igneous intrusions, you can think about a plumbing system under the surface, and that lava feeds up through the plumbing system, kind of like our city water um, system, and that feeds up and creates pipes. And then as the molten rock solidifies, it will then contract and it will leave open these big places. What's also really interesting is that next to the caves, you could feel, just sitting next to the open areas, a difference in temperature. Like this was a really hot day, so I sat next to this little cave and I was able to cool off because the air in that space was not heated by the sun and it's subsurface. I eventually make it up to the end of the trail, which is the actual spatter cone itself, and you can see how it's kind of circular, but you can also see that there is vegetation growing inside of it, which indicates that that vegetation had to have time to grow. This is the last bit of elevation change before I reach the actual mouth, if you will, of the spatter cone. And as you can see, it is kind of round, and there is indeed shrubbery growing inside. It's really easy to find a lot of fissures in these types of areas. The pressure and the heat under the surface is so much that it looks to equalize that pressure often, and you get these different formations like spatter cones, like cinder cones in these volcanic areas. There was a snake that was actually in the water and it came to land, which kind of surprised me. But this is Manzanita Lake. And over 3 centuries ago, a massive rock avalanche cascaded down from Chaos Crags, which we'll see in a minute, creating a natural dam that obstructed the flow of Manzanita Creek. So it gave rise to this shallow body of water. The same thing happens all over the world all the time. It's when there are events where a mass of rock falls down and fills in a valley or a creek, then new bodies of water can be made. This is also a really nice place to have a picnic, and they have a campground here at Lassen National Park. So Manzanita Campground is a great campground to try if you're in the area. It is also said that the trout here have become so accustomed to visitors and human presence that they're not easily startled. So if you're a fisherman, then you're in luck. I wanted to document some of the drive in this park. It is just so beautiful. And as you're driving, you can see where they had to actually create roads through the lava flows and through the pyroclastic materials. Imagine being tasked with the creation of a road system in a volcanically active area. This was interesting. This was called Hot Rock. In the Hot Rock area, this rock in general has been at rest for over a century in this location. It's a massive boulder, and it was once part of the vent of Lassen Peak, like the actual volcano. During that eruption, there was a big lahar that came and propelled this 30-ton colossus down the slopes of Lassen Peak. So it came through a slurry of mud, earth, rock, water. Witnesses actually reported that hot rock remained scorching to the touch even months after the eruption. So it was a testament to the internal temperature, estimated to have reached at least 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it tumbled down from the peak. The Nobles Trail, the Immigrant Trail, it's a branch of the California National Historic Trail, and it was a mid-19th century highway for human movement because of gold and farmland in California. Between 1841 and 1869, 200,000 immigrants, EM, not IMM, EM, IGRANTS, traversing California. And thousands of people along this trail caused so many changes to the lifeways of Native Americans as well. This next clip, I'm driving up on the devastated area trail. This is basically the area that was exactly downwind from the original explosion on Lassen Peak. It's actually a really easy hike, good for families, and there's not a lot of elevation gain, so I would highly recommend it. As you move higher in elevation, you can notice a vegetation change. In geography, we talk about the environmental lapse rate. As you move higher in elevation, you're changing the atmospheric pressure and the weather systems, so you'll experience a different type of vegetation distribution. Additionally, when you drive through areas that were previously burned, be absolutely a bit more wary, because these are areas that could have a possible mass wasting event really quickly. Trees can fall down. If you're camping, I would not suggest camping in an area that was recently burned, because it could be very dangerous. So pay very good attention when you're driving through burned areas. Chaos Crag was like a small tsunami of volcanic rock. So think about a huge avalanche, a wall of volcanic rock coming down super fast. That's what happened here. I had promised myself that I would at least make the attempt to get up Mount Lassen, and this is my drive into the trailhead to get up Mount Lassen. And the first few minutes of video here is me on foot starting up the mountain. This is a pretty big elevation gain. The Lassen Peak trailhead is actually pretty strenuous. It's 5 miles round trip, 8 kilometers, 4 to 5 hours at least, and you have an elevation gain of 8,500 feet. So you start at 596 meters and increase to 2,591 meters. So it was pretty amazing, and it's mostly packed dirt, loose rocks, uneven surfaces. As you keep increasing in elevation, what you notice really quickly is that the trees start disappearing, so the opportunities for shade also start to disappear. I was wearing a hat and sunglasses, but I highly suggest that you take something to cover your shoulders, and the temperature change from the bottom to the top can be very dramatic. It really calls for actually quite a few layers. So if you're making this hike or you attempt it, make sure to take layers, lots of water, and sun protection. So this hike is actually up the volcano that was in the 19 responsible for the 1914 eruption. So the youngest rock is found here on Lassen Peak. The youngest rock in California is on Lassen Peak. It was the most recent in that state to erupt. And on the left of the screen, you can actually see what they call it Vulcan's eye. Can you see Vulcan's eye? Look out onto the peak and you can see an eye. I think it's really beautiful. I think it's really auspicious. But, we like to anthropomorphize things, right? But it does look like an eye. But that's Vulcan's eye. And you lose sight of it as you move higher and higher up on this trail. It was at this point that I started to feel a difference in how I was breathing, but there was also a difference in the vegetation, and the view was amazing. So very little snowpack left. I haven't studied the history of the snowpack here at Lassen, but on average, all of the glaciers are receding and having a really hard time bouncing back. The eruption of this peak is widely studied, and the volcanic products are there have been papers written about the types of rocks here. The eruption in 1915 produced 4 volcanic rock types: a hybrid black dacite, undercooled andesitic inclusions, compositionally banded pumice, and dark andesite and light andesite bands, and unbanded light dacite. All of these represent the mixing. We talk about magma mixing and magma assimilation, and this showed incomplete mixing in the magmatic products. And once you reach the top, you'll be treated to one of the most spectacular views, I think, in Northern California. And when you look towards the north, you can see Mount Shasta off the skyline. It is important to remember that this place is still active with hydrothermal activity. There's water that's being heated by magma deep in the earth that rises up in a few different areas. I never was able to make it to the hydrothermal areas, but they're definitely worth a look-see. Similar to Yellowstone that you see at Yellowstone, Lassen Volcanic has those types of areas as well. Thank you so much for coming to my little walk through parts of Lassen Forest and Lassen Volcanic Park. I hope you enjoyed it.